Hey everybody, I thought I would just go ahead and make a video to show everybody about what I've been doing lately. So I'm scraping off all the excess paint here. It's actually really fun. Some of it's wet though, which is why I'm using this little knife thing. And then I'm setting out these records. You can pour on just about anything. So I'm going to pour first on this canvas. I got them at Walmart in a pack of 4 for like $10. Setting off to the side, and I'm going to cover these records in gesso, which is like a plaster, and it's going to make it so that it's more smooth. And I've actually never tried just pouring on the record. It might work, but I just assume because there's little lines in the record that the paint might not cover all the way. So I just cover this whole thing in this gesso, and the gesso is probably like $15 for the bottle. It's called Liquitex Gesso, and I'll put all the stuff that I use in the description. So then you want to get out all your cups after you've covered it in gesso, and you set them off to the side. And I sped this part up because it takes the longest. It's just your colors. You want to make sure that your colors are not going to bleed together and make a muddy mess. So you want to use like black, brown, gold, orange, dark colors like that all together. It would end up being kind of muddy. So I like so far to just use the colors of the rainbow. So the colors that I have used in the past that didn't work out are I just used white, yellow, red, and green. White, yellow, green, and blue. And the reason why that didn't work out is because yellow and blue make green. And so it all just kind of blurred together, and you can see that one in the background. It's just green and white. So I'm choosing colors like blues, reds, yellows. Those have shown up really nicely. The best idea to do if you're going to be doing a lot of this is to buy these pint-sized bottles that I'm using. I got them from Amazon, a pack of 12 for $60. And they'll last a while because you use a lot more of the actual pouring medium, which I'll show you in a minute, compared to the paint. The most important thing is to make sure that all of the paint is the same thickness and you have the same amount for each. And that's why it's important to just go ahead and buy all of the pint-sized bottles, because if you have the little tiny bottles, normally, like in the craft paint aisle, normally those are thinner and they're going to run out a lot quicker, and that means that they'll cover. So I did that once, and the whole thing ended up basically being teal, and you couldn't see any of my other colors. And I mean, it was still pretty, but you're wasting a lot of the paint from the other colors. It's just a learning process. And then so I also use these acrylic inks, which I'm about to use now, this yellow one. I added white paint to a cup, and then I'm going to add some yellow ink to it. It's called Dr. Martin's ink, and I really like it. They're called acrylic inks, and it makes it nice for this because you're worried about thickness, so I added a lot of white paint. I didn't want to add any more yellow paint because that would have made it way too thick. So I'm using 2 shades of red, 2 shades of blue, 1 shade of purple, and then 2 shades of yellow. I could have used another shade of purple now that I'm looking and thinking about it. So you just want to do equal amount of each. I fill up like less than 1/4 of the cup, because you're going to combine all the cups together, and it's going to be you want to fill up about a little over a 1/2 cup to cover a canvas. The leftover paint that I pour is going to be used to cover one of the records. And so there I am using more ink, and I'm making a lighter shade of yellow. And I'm going to get ready to use the Liquitex pouring medium. I got the bottle on Amazon for $25, and then I really liked it. I really like this type of art, so I went ahead and bought the gallon jug of it, and it was like $60. So now I use the gallon jug to fill up my bottle, and it works out well that way. But yeah, so the first investments that I made in this were about $200 so far. So it's really not something that, I mean, you can use Elmer's glue also instead of acrylic pouring medium, but it's really not something that you just do like one time, unless you want to use Elmer's glue, just because the things needed are pretty expensive and they're a lot cheaper if you buy them in bulk. That's why I bought 12 bottles and I bought a gallon of the pouring medium. So here I'm just mixing them all together. You want to make sure that when you pick up the popsicle stick, it runs off of the end, because that means it's going to run on the canvas. And you just want to add a little bit more if it's not runny enough. And then you just keep adding that. And you want to be kind of quick because this stuff will start to dry. And it's because you can also use Elmer's glue, it is really similar to Elmer's glue. It dries clear and it dries quickly. So I'm just going around and I'm adding it all, making sure that I have the same amount and that the thickness is the same. And then you kind of want to be thinking about your color pattern that you're going to do. The color that's on the bottom is going to be the one that shows the least, and that comes out at the very end, so it'll be on the, most likely on the outside, that and so you want to, and then here I'm adding what's called coconut milk. It's actually a hair product, and it's just, did a lot of research, and another artist that I know uses this. I'll put it in the description, but it was like $6, and you just squirt a little bit of that in there, and it's basically like silicone. And then you leave it in there. You don't stir it until you're just about to pour them all into a cup, and that activates, and that's what gives all those little bubbles. So you see in the background there's all the little cells and bubbles. That's what's going to do that, which is pretty cool. And if you don't add that, you can really tell, because I accidentally forgot one time and the painting ended up a disaster. So you're just adding colors. So I'm starting with navy blue because I want it to show the least, and then I'm going with blue, blue, blue. So because I have 3 different shades of blue, because you want to have one dark color and one light color. Well, you don't have to, but that's just what I've seen that shows up the prettiest. So I did navy, dark blue, light blue, purple. Now I'm doing a magenta color, and then I'm going to do a reddish orange color. And then I'll do the yellow and then the light yellow. And then you want to repeat the same process over and over again, and you just want to make sure that you're getting the paint right on top of each other. And like, there's so many different types of techniques you can do for this. I don't necessarily know them. I've just kind of been messing around and seeing what works out for me. I do know that it doesn't take a lot for a smaller canvas. So see, I'm using the extra blue and I'm pouring it in this other cup. And in this other cup, I'm going to use that to cover up the small record. So you just want to keep adding the colors one after another in the same order. And like I said, I don't know what it would be like to do any other technique. This is just the one that I've started with, and I just kept doing it. The thing that I've noticed is the most important is the pouring medium ratio to paint, because if they're not the same, then one color will show up more than the rest. In this case, my reds were a little bit thinner, and my yellows were a little bit thinner than my blues. And so you'll see that they show up the most, and I'm okay with that. Sometimes it's the color that you don't want the most that shows up the most, but it all ends up to be pretty anyways. So you just keep doing this, and this is it's a long process, but then once you finally tip the cup over, it's pretty quick after that. So I'm adding the rest of the yellow to this other cup over here, and then I'm going to that's the cup I'm going to use on the canvas. I'm going to give it a little stir, And then I'm going to set that off to the side and get ready to pour. This is the fun part. You want to make sure you cover all the corners. I learned that the hard way. Sometimes it's harder to get your paint to run, and you don't want it to all end up being blurry and messed together. So you want to do the least amount of pouring or like moving around as possible, because that's going to make your colors more muddy. And then you want to decide which color you want to show up the most. So I wanted this blue over here in the corner to show up, so I kind of pulled it out a little bit, and it's really red and yellow because those were the thinner ones and the blues were thicker. I also put the blues more at the bottom. But you can see the coconut milk is making the bubbles, and it's getting all over my hands, and that's why you want to wear gloves, by the way. I don't mind being messy, but this stuff is like plastic when it dries on your hands, and so it doesn't just wash off. You have to like peel it off. So that's not very fun. So I'm going to try to get some gloves soon. And so you just cover it all, and it's really just up to you at this point how you want it to look. The more you pull the one way, obviously I'm trying to get that blue and that yellow to show up more than the red. And then I'm trying to cover up the sides where there's little white parts. And then I'm just going to like set it off to the side and get ready to do the next record. The records are fun, but you have to make sure that you clog up the hole. The hole, I've noticed, kind of gets in the way sometimes. So I put some popsicle sticks and taped them to the back, and then decided to start the pouring on the side so that it didn't waste much, but it ends up getting on the side, and I waste a little. You can see once I pour it, it kind of goes off the edge, and I have to hurry up and pick it up before I lose some of my paint. And then this is kind of messy because I sat it down in wet paint. It's wet on the back now, and so the whole thing's a nasty mess, but it ends up looking really cool, so it doesn't matter to me. There's always extra paint in the bottom of your cup, and you want to make sure you use all of it. So that's what I'm doing here. And I really like the way this one turns out because I had a lot of leftover yellow, and I really like that yellow color. The records I do more leniently than I do my canvases because my records are a lot cheaper. You can get them at Goodwill for like 60 cents. And my canvases are more expensive, and they're harder to come by at Goodwill. These little records, you can get them all day there, and you want to make sure that you cover them in something before you pour over them. And then, like I said, this is just kind of up to you at this point. You can stop whenever you want. You can keep twisting and turning. I want this yellow to show up, so I'm trying to get a grip on the back, but it's wet, and trying to pour it out. And then I'm going to, you can also, I've seen people, if they want a little bit of pop of color, they'll add just like a little strip in there and move it around. So I could have added some pink or something. That would have been pretty. But I went ahead and just left it the way it was because I kind of like that it's just blue and yellow. And as you can see, I used the same colors for both of the pourings, and I used kind of the same pattern, and they turned out completely different, and that's the cool part about this. But also you see all the paint that I've wasted in the bottom. It's very wasteful, but it ends up to be really pretty. And it's also, like I said, it's kind of expensive. So if you want to try it at home, I would suggest getting craft paint and then doing Elmer's glue at first until you get the hang of it. And if you want to really invest in it, I would suggest getting the pint-sized bottles, the gallon size of the pouring medium, and that's gonna be the best for you. But I just want to give you guys a little look into what this is and how it's not kind of just something that you just pick up and do. It takes a little bit of skill. I really enjoy it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Thanks for watching, and I hope to make more videos here soon.